And we're back, yo people of YouTube, welcome to my channel. I'm Ishe Jindu or Zinyati, pretty much your go-to person for everything you need to know about your house and any other property you're going to buy out there. And today we're continuing with the trend of interior design by going over what exactly constitutes the styles of interior design. We're going to be going over 3, but there's so many more, which if I get the time and I understand them, I'll be making this an entire series on. So subscribe for real, like this video, share this video, and as always, let's get into it. You've probably already heard people talking about it in passing when they're talking about interior design styles, saying things like it's traditional, it's contemporary, it's modern, it's minimalist, all those sort of things. But what exactly constitutes making a style of interior design? Well, that's exactly what I've been learning, and that's exactly what I'm going to be taking you through on this video. We're going to be keeping it to 3 styles of video, talking about them, what makes them up, what are the differences, and what exactly happens if you mix and match them together and all that. So to begin with, when we're talking about style with regards to interior design, we're usually talking about individual rooms, or it can be the style of the entire household in its entirety. And pretty much what constitutes the foundation of making a style comes down to 6 factors: the furniture, the lighting, accessories, and the color palette, as well as the weight of the room, which is made up of 2 components: the free empty space in the room and the matter that makes up the room, which is just the broad way of saying how exactly are you utilizing the 4 aspects I mentioned first. You'll soon come to find out that every style we're going to be talking about, or every style that you come across, is just a different way of incorporating these 6 elements in a room or in your entire house. On this video, we're just going to be covering 3 styles, which I would also argue are the most popular styles out there, but as well are probably the blurriest types of styles to differentiate and talk about. And that's the modern style, the contemporary style, and the minimalist style. So let's get to it. So let's start our discussion out with the modern style, which though it's often confused or misinterpreted as modern and contemporary, these 2 styles are different and have certain nuances that differentiate them from one another. So when we're talking about the modern style, we're not saying modern as in today, we're saying modern as in the 20th century, which pretty much in a styling perspective is focused on having a natural aesthetic in a room or in your house. With relevance to the 6 aspects I talked about before with regard to what makes an interior design style, let's begin with the color palette of a modern style. The color palette will usually lean to a more monochrome or natural coloring palette. That is to say, on the monochrome side, you're talking about your blacks, your whites, your grays, and your beiges. And on the natural side, you're thinking more along the lines of your light greens, baby blues, and light orange shades. After that, when it comes to the discussion of the types of furniture you'd have in your home, when you're looking at using a more modern design aesthetic, you're thinking of having furniture that is more focused on being angular than rounded, which is to say this is furniture pieces that prioritize having vertical and horizontal lining. Think of your typical couch or sofa and your normal square table and normal square side tables. And you'd also be utilizing more natural materials for the design of what makes the furniture and everything in that room, which is your leathers, your woods, your metals, and your glass materials. Keeping with the natural vibe of a modern styled home, when it comes to lighting, you're prioritizing clear natural light from the sun, which also directly correlates to you having large windows that aren't obscured with much. You want to prioritize being able to obtain as much natural lighting as possible in your room or your entire house. And then we get to the accessories, and typically accessories are far and few between. A modern styled home usually tries to get rid of the fluff, as you'd find in a minimalist home, which this strongly correlates to. But it's often not rare to find a few pieces of accessories such as paintings and framed photos, as well as any type of actual decoration you'd find in a home. The only thing is that it would usually follow suit with how you'd find furniture in your property. That is to say, whatever you're getting, it's angular and fits with what you typically find with the furniture in the property. When it comes to the color scheme of the decorations, it can follow suit to the color scheme of the room, though you can also act a little bit crazy and go with something that contrasts the color of the room in order to create a sort of focal point in the room. And finally, with all the aspects I've been talking about, the general weight of the room regarding the space and matter of the things you've brought in is usually fairly equal in a modern styled room. That is to say, the amount of free space you get to move through and the amount of stuff that you're using in the room is generally balanced. You're trying to not get into a situation where you feel like there's too much empty space, as you might find in a minimalist home that we'll talk about later on, and it's not as if the room is cluttered. It just feels balanced. After the modern interior design style, we've got the contemporary style. And oddly enough, contemporary is exactly what we mean when we say the style of today, which is exactly what contemporary means, belonging in the moment. It's not exactly the easiest thing to do when it comes to defining what exactly makes up the characteristics of the contemporary style. This is because all in all, every style that's ever been there has at one point and some point been a contemporary style. Technically, if the style was popular today, it constitutes as being a contemporary style for today. So the contemporary style is largely different from all other styles that we'll discuss in the series, in that those styles are defined by their design, whereas the contemporary style is defined by a constantly evolving design. Whatever design is popular today is contemporary, and as well will stop being contemporary when a new style comes and takes over. There are a few guidelines to what makes a contemporary style that typically hold true regardless of what era you're in, and I'll cover those right now. Starting off with the fact that the contemporary style is not afraid and actually incorporates a lot more rounded features in its design, whether that's in furniture or accessories in the room. After that, another way to identify and create a contemporary style is that a contemporary style typically prioritizes more open space than things in a room. That is to say, there's more space than there is matter, the things you use and the things you employ to decorate the room. You'll find a lot more open walking areas and free space in a contemporary style. The color style, if you're to take it as it is today, is monochrome, blacks, whites, grays, beiges, and that's because it's what's popular today. The last major defining characteristic of a contemporary style is the fact that you can pretty much mix and match a lot of other styles in one and just call it contemporary instead of calling it the mix match of this and this. The contemporary style, because it's been these styles before, can also typically just utilize all these other styles in one under the broad umbrella of saying contemporary. What's popular today is contemporary, what's popular tomorrow is contemporary, and everything sort of stops being contemporary when something new comes along. And lastly, our final interior design topic of the day, we're going to be talking about minimalism, which has been the rave of the town for the past 5, 6, maybe even 10 years. It seems that everyone's talking about minimalism as of late. And in that regard, pretty much minimalism is the contemporary of today. Which is funny because minimalism also borrows a lot more from modern interior design than from most other interior designs. Like modern interior design and unlike normal traditional contemporary interior design, minimalism follows an often set guide rule on how your property should be designed. And typically the designs will usually borrow a lot from modern interior design, but will crank up the weighted ratio of matter and space in the room to greatly prioritize more space in the room than having matter in the room. The minimalist style is highly orientated to getting rid of the flamboyancy and excess in a room. Whatever you're having in a room when you're following a minimalist design is usually prioritizing function over everything else. This doesn't mean you can't have pretty or expensive things in your room when you're following a minimalist design. It just means whatever you have in your room is prioritizing function over form or over just being there. There's no reason for you to have more of anything in your room than what you know you need in that room. Also, like the modern interior design we talked about, the color scheme is typically also leaning more towards that monochrome style of your blacks, your whites, your beiges, and your grays. Minimalism often has a nasty rumor following it that's usually associated with a sanitary, soulless room because it has so much free space and not a lot of trinkets and knickknacks and doodads. But that's far from the fact. There's no reason a room can't be as warm and inviting as any other room designed in any other interior design fashion, as long as you pay key attention to exactly what you're bringing into the room and how it's going to speak volumes for the room you're in. Though I will admit, of all the 3 interior design styles I've spoken about today, minimalism is definitely the one that is the easiest to get wrong and get that sanitary, soulless look if you're not fully certain on how you want to incorporate it. Down the line, I might go into more in-depth analyses on how exactly you incorporate these different styles, but for now, you've got the entrance level and you know what they're doing. This is just a brief introduction. If you enjoyed it, type it in the comments below. Like this video, hit the bell button as always. This Saturday, I'm planning a video that's going to go back to a more traditional Saturday Real Talk Real Estate and talk a little bit about real estate investing. I hope you stick around. Anyway, I've been your host, Ishe Jindu or Zinyati. Subscribe for real. Like this video, share this video. Ishe Jindu at ivafrica.com for any business inquiries, and I'll see you on the next one.